I've spent my entire life standing in the shadows, sacrificing everything for my children, believing a mother's love was unconditional, until that morning, when a strange thank you card and a nearly $10,000 charge appeared, telling me my daughter had thrown her engagement party without inviting me. Worse, she'd used my emergency credit card to pay for it. They thought I'd stay silent, but they forgot that a mother's silence can be the most dangerous weapon of all. My name is Margaret Dawson, and at 68 years old, I thought I understood the rhythm of my mornings. Coffee at 6:30 sharp, NPR humming softly from the kitchen radio, and the satisfying crunch of whole wheat toast with marmalade. The house felt too large since Harold passed 3 years ago, but I'd grown accustomed to the silence, filling it with small routines that kept me anchored. That Tuesday morning started like any other. The October sun filtered through the lace curtains Harold's mother had given us 40 years ago, casting familiar patterns across the kitchen table. I was sorting through the mail, mostly junk, a few bills, the usual pharmaceutical advertisements that seem to multiply after you hit 60, when I noticed an elegant cream envelope addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a thank you card, embossed with gold lettering. Thank you for making Rachel's engagement celebration absolutely perfect. Your generosity made our dream evening possible. With gratitude, the Morrison family. The Morrisons, I knew that name. David Morrison, Rachel's fiancé's parents. But what engagement celebration? My hands trembled slightly as I set the card down, a cold sensation creeping up my spine. Before I could process this, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Chase Bank. I rarely check these immediately, but something made me open it. The subject line read, "Your recent transaction of $9,847. 52 at the Grand Meridian Hotel. $9,847.52. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. The Grand Meridian, that exclusive hotel downtown where Harold and I had celebrated our 40th anniversary. The only card linked to that account was the emergency credit card I'd given Rachel years ago. Just in case something happened. My fingers moved mechanically, opening the full statement. The charges painted a picture I couldn't quite believe. Florist, $2,300. Catering, $4,800. Private dining room rental, $1,500. DJ services, $600. Premium bar package, $850. The dates were all from last Saturday, 3 days ago. I set the phone down carefully, as if it might shatter. The kitchen suddenly felt airless. Through the window, Mrs. Henderson was walking her terrier, the same route she'd taken for 15 years. Everything outside looked normal, unchanged, but inside my chest, something fundamental had cracked. Rachel had thrown an engagement party, a lavish one, by the looks of it, and she'd used my emergency card to pay for it. But more than the money, though God knows that was a significant sum for a widow on a fixed income, was the other fact settling, like lead in my stomach. She hadn't invited me. I picked up my phone with unsteady hands and scrolled through my recent calls. No missed calls from Saturday, no texts. I checked my voicemail, though I knew it was pointless. Nothing. The coffee maker gurgled its completion, but the thought of coffee now made me nauseous. I stood up, needing to move, to do something with the energy coursing through me. The thank you card stared up at me from the table, its gold lettering catching the morning light. Your generosity made our dream evening possible. My generosity, as if I'd offered it, as if I'd been consulted, as if I'd been considered at all. I walked to the living room, each step feeling disconnected from my body. The walls were lined with photographs: Rachel's high school graduation, Daniel's college years, family Christmases, summers at the lake. In every photo, I stood slightly to the side or behind my children, always the supporting player, never the lead. When had I become so invisible that my own daughter could plan the most important celebration of her engagement without even telling me? The house felt different now, as if I were seeing it for the first time, not as a home filled with memories, but as a museum to a life spent in service to others. Every corner held evidence of my sacrifices. The empty space where my grandmother's china cabinet once stood, sold to pay for Rachel's study abroad program. The faded rectangle on the wall where Harold's father's painting had hung before I sold it to help Daniel with his business venture that ultimately failed. And now this. Not just forgotten, but used. My credit card might as well have been an ATM. My absence at the party so unremarkable that no one, not Rachel, not Daniel, not any of the family friends who must have attended, had thought to question it. I sank onto the couch, the thank you card still clutched in my hand, outside. The world continued its Tuesday morning routine, but inside this too large house, something had fundamentally shifted. The morning's peace hadn't just been broken, it had been shattered, revealing a truth I'd been too afraid to see. I wasn't just alone. I had been deliberately, calculatedly left behind. The thank you card lay on the coffee table like an accusation as memories began flooding back, each one a small cut that hadn't seemed significant at the time but now formed a pattern too clear to ignore. I remembered Rachel's college graduation 5 years ago. I'd driven 6 hours through a spring storm to be there, only to find my seat was in the overflow section, while Harold's sister, who barely knew Rachel, sat with the immediate family in the front rows. "Oh, Mom, I thought you weren't coming since you didn't RSVP to the email," Rachel had said, though I'd never received any email. Then there was Daniel's wedding 3 years ago. I'd offered to help with planning, only to be told everything was already handled. I discovered later that my former sister-in-law had been consulted on every detail, from flowers to music selection, at the reception. I sat at table 9 with Harold's distant cousins while my own sister was placed at table 3 with what Daniel called the important guests. The house seemed to echo with all the times I'd been subtly pushed aside. The Thanksgiving when Rachel suggested I was too stressed to cook and ordered catering instead, using my credit card, of course. The Christmas morning when both children arrived late because they'd had early breakfast with their father's family first, leaving me waiting with a cooling feast and dimming candles. I stood and walked to my study, where I kept the family financial records. Harold had always insisted on meticulous bookkeeping, a habit I'd maintained after his death. I pulled out the folder marked Family Assistance and spread its contents across the desk. The numbers told their own story. $25,000 for Rachel's law school when she decided teaching wasn't fulfilling enough. The loan never mentioned again, certainly never repaid. $15,000 to Daniel for his restaurant venture. He'd been so passionate, so certain it would work. The restaurant closed in 8 months. Another $10,000 when he needed to start fresh with a new apartment and car after his divorce. Each time, I dipped into the savings Harold and I had built together. Family helps family, I'd told myself, even as I canceled the Mediterranean cruise Harold and I had planned for our retirement, even as I watched our dream of a winter home in Florida dissolve into nothing. I picked up a photo from the desk, last year's Mother's Day. Rachel had posted it on Facebook with the caption, "Blessed to have this woman in my life." In the picture, I stood slightly apart from the group, my smile not quite reaching my eyes. I hadn't noticed it then, but now I could see it clearly. I looked like a guest at my own celebration. The doorbell rang, startling me from my reverie. Through the peephole, I saw Mrs. Parker from next door, holding a casserole dish. "Margaret, dear, I hope I'm not intruding," she said when I opened the door. "I saw Rachel's engagement announcement in the paper. How exciting! You must be over the moon." In the paper. My daughter had announced her engagement in the paper, but hadn't told me about the party. "Yes," I managed, accepting the casserole with numb hands. "Very exciting. That must have been some party at the Grand Meridian." "Mrs." Parker continued, oblivious to my shock. "My niece works there. Said it was the event of the season. You must have been so proud, watching Rachel celebrate with all those people." All those people. How many? 50? 100? Everyone but her mother. After Mrs. Parker left. I sat at the kitchen table with her casserole, a kind gesture from someone who was essentially a stranger. While my own children couldn't bother to include me in their milestones, I thought about Harold's mother, Eleanor. She'd lived with us for the last 5 years of her life, and I'd cared for her through her decline, changed her bedding, managed her medications, held her hand through the dark nights when she forgot where she was. Rachel and Daniel visited occasionally, always briefly, always with somewhere else to be. "You're so good to do this," Rachel had said once, watching me help Eleanor to the bathroom. I could never have that kind of patience. But I did. I had patience for everyone. Patience when they forgot my birthday, patience when they canceled plans, patience when they borrowed money, patience when they treated my home like a hotel and my bank account like a trust fund. The sun had climbed higher now, casting shorter shadows across the kitchen floor. Somewhere in this city, Rachel was probably having lunch with friends, perhaps showing off her engagement ring, basking in the aftermath of her perfect party, the party paid for with my money, the party I wasn't invited to attend. I picked up the thank you card one more time, running my finger over the embossed lettering. The Morrisons had thanked me for my generosity, at least someone had. But as I sat there in my too quiet kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of a lifetime of giving, I realized something had to change. The old Margaret, the patient one, the understanding one, the invisible one, had received her last thank you card for a party she didn't attend. It was time to stop being generous with people who couldn't even be generous enough to include me in their lives. The doorbell rang at 2:15 that afternoon. Through the living room window, I watched Daniel pull his key from his pocket, then seemed to remember that I was home and put it away. Small mercies. "Hey, Mom," he said when I opened the door, already looking past me into the house. "Is the Lexus in the garage? I need to borrow it for the weekend. Mine's in the shop." Of course it was. Daniel's car was perpetually in the shop, which I'd learned was code for "I haven't made the payments." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Would you like some coffee?" "Can't stay long." He was already heading toward the kitchen where I kept the spare keys. "Lisa's waiting in the car." Lisa, the latest girlfriend. They never came in to say hello anymore. "Daniel," I said, following him, "before you take the car, I wanted to ask you something." "Sure, what's up?" He was rifling through the key drawer, not looking at me. "Rachel's engagement party. How was it?" His hand stilled for just a moment before resuming its search. "Oh, yeah, it was nice. I'm sure it was. The Grand Meridian is beautiful." Now he turned, and I saw it in his eyes, that flicker of recognition, quickly suppressed. He knew. Of course he knew. "Mom, about that, when was it exactly?" He shifted his weight, suddenly fascinated by the kitchen floor. "Saturday. Last Saturday." "What time?" 7 at night. And it was family only." The words hung between us. I watched him wrestle with the lie, saw the moment he decided to lean into it instead. "Well, immediate family. You know how these things are. Space limitations and all that. Immediate family." I repeated the words slowly, tasting their bitterness. "I see. And I'm what, exactly?" "Mom, don't be like that. You know Rachel? She probably just forgot to mention it. She's been so stressed with work and planning the wedding." "She forgot to mention a $9,000 party?" His face went pale. "9,000? Jesus. Mom, I had no idea. But you knew about the party. You were there. It wasn't my place to—" "Look, this is between you and Rachel." "No, Daniel, this is between me and both of you, because you stood there at your sister's engagement party, surrounded by immediate family, and neither of you thought to wonder where I was." He found the keys finally, clutching them like a lifeline. "Mom, I really have to go. Lisa's pregnant and she gets carsick if she sits too long." The words landed like another blow. Lisa was pregnant, another milestone I was learning about in passing, mentioned only because it was convenient to his escape. "Pregnant," I said flatly. "How far along?" 4 months. He was already moving toward the door. "We're keeping it quiet for now." 4 months, which meant he'd known during Rachel's party. Another secret, another exclusion. "Congratulations," I said, because what else could I say? "When were you planning to tell me?" "Soon, We were going to tell everyone soon. Look, Mom, I really do have to go. We'll talk later, okay? But we wouldn't. We both knew that. Talking would require him to acknowledge what had happened, to face the fact that he'd participated in deliberately excluding me from a family celebration. I followed him to the door, watching as he practically jogged to the car. Lisa sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up, didn't wave. 4 months pregnant with my grandchild, and she couldn't even make eye contact. "Daniel," I called out before he got in the car. "The keys?" "What?" "Give me back the keys. The car's not available." "Mom, come on, I told you I need it. It's just for the weekend." And I needed to be invited to my daughter's engagement party. We don't always get what we need. You're being petty. "No," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "I'm being clear. The car's not available. Neither is the bank of Mom." He stared at me, and I saw him cycling through his usual manipulations. Guilt, anger, the wounded son routine, but something in my face must have warned him off. "Fine," he said finally, tossing the keys onto the porch. They landed at my feet with a metallic clatter. "This is really mature. Mom, really great parenting." "Parenting," I repeated as he got in his car. Interesting choice of words from someone who's been hiding a pregnancy for 4 months. He slammed the door and drove off, tires squealing slightly as he took the corner too fast, always the dramatic exit. My Daniel. I bent to pick up the keys, my knees protesting the movement. Inside, the house felt different somehow. Lighter, maybe. As if Daniel's departure had taken some weight with it. I sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Rachel. So Daniel had already reported back. The family gossip network was efficient, if nothing else. I didn't return the calls. Instead, I made a different one. First National Bank? Yes. I need to report a fraudulent charge on my credit card. The words came easily. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Fraud. Using someone's credit card without their knowledge or permission for a party they weren't invited to attend. As I gave the details to the sympathetic representative, I thought about Daniel's face when I'd asked for the keys back, the shock of hearing no from someone who had always said yes. Outside, Lisa's car was long gone, carrying my son and my grandchild-to-be back to their lives that apparently had no room for me until they needed something. But that was changing now. Word by word, boundary by boundary, I was writing a new story. One where immediate family included the woman who'd given birth to them. One where generosity flowed both ways. One where being their mother didn't mean being their doormat. After the bank call, I sat at Harold's old desk with a cup of tea and my laptop. The fraud report was just the beginning. If I was going to reclaim my life, I needed to see the full picture. I logged into our online banking and pulled up 5 years of statements. The patterns emerged like a photograph developing in slow motion. Monthly transfers to Rachel. 300 here, 500 there. Just until her next paycheck. Daniel's auto payments that somehow always came from my account instead of his. The vacations I'd helped fund but was never invited to join. $10,000 last Christmas for Rachel's work emergency that turned out to be a shopping spree in Milan. $8,000 to Daniel for investment opportunities that vanished like morning mist. The wedding gift for Harold's nephew, a check for $2,000, while Rachel suggested we keep it simple for my 70th birthday with a potted plant and a card. I created a spreadsheet, my fingers steady on the keys. Harold had taught me Excel during his final months, insisting I learn to manage the finances. "You're too trusting, Maggie," he'd said. "Promise me you'll watch the money." I'd promised, then promptly ignored that promise in favor of being the giving mother, the helpful mother, the mother who never said no. The total made me close my eyes. $247,000 over 5 years, $250,000. My retirement security, Harold's life insurance, our savings, hemorrhaging out in drips and drabs to children who couldn't even invite me to dinner. The phone rang. Rachel. "Mom, Daniel just called me." "What's this about you refusing to lend him the car? He said you were acting strange." "Strange," I repeated, saving the spreadsheet. "Is that what he called it? He's worried about you. We both are. This isn't like you. No, it isn't. The old me would have handed over the keys without question. The old me would have pretended not to notice that my daughter threw a $9,000 party on my credit card without inviting me. Silence. Then, Mom, about the party. When were you planning to tell me? Rachel? It was just a small thing. Close friends and family. Which I'm apparently not. Don't be dramatic. You know how you get in social situations. I thought you'd be more comfortable. Stop. The word came out sharper than I intended. Don't you dare try to spin this as concern for my comfort. You used my credit card to pay for a party you deliberately excluded me from. That's theft, Rachel. Theft? Are you serious right now? After everything I've done for you? I actually laughed. What exactly have you done for me? I call you every week. You call when you need something. I invited you to Thanksgiving last year. You told me to bring 3 side dishes and the turkey, then seated me in the kitchen because the dining room was full. Mom, you're twisting everything. I'm done twisting, Rachel. I'm done bending. I'm done shrinking myself to fit into whatever corner you've designated for mothers who've outlived their usefulness. That's not... You're being completely unfair. I've canceled your access to my credit cards, all of them. I've also asked the bank to reverse the charges from your party. You can't do that. The Morrisons will think. David's family will. Mom, you'll ruin everything. No. Rachel, you ruined it when you decided I wasn't worth inviting to celebrate your engagement. I'm just declining to pay for the privilege of being excluded. I can't believe you're doing this. Dad would be so disappointed in you. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Harold, who'd loved me fiercely, who'd spent his last days making me promise to take care of myself, who'd whispered, "Don't let them take advantage of your good heart the night before he died." Your father, I said quietly, would be ashamed of how you've treated me, and deep down, you know it. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear or sadness. This was something else, a fierce, clean energy I hadn't felt in years. I pulled up my email and began typing. To my lawyer, Michael Patterson. I need to update my will and establish new parameters for the family trust. Please call at your earliest convenience. To the locksmith. I need all locks changed tomorrow. Complete recce, including garage codes. To my financial advisor. I want to review all beneficiaries and access permissions on my accounts. Urgent. Each email felt like a declaration of independence. I was drawing borders around my life, my money, my home, borders that should have existed all along. The phone rang again. Daniel this time. I let it go to voicemail. Then Rachel. Voicemail. An unknown number, probably one of them calling from someone else's phone. Voicemail. I stood and walked through my house with new eyes. This wasn't just the museum to my service I'd seen this morning. This was my home, my sanctuary, the place where Harold and I had built a life, where I'd continued that life alone. Every surface, every photograph, every carefully chosen piece of furniture represented decades of work, saving, choosing, creating, and I'd been letting people treat it like a convenience store. No more. I opened my computer again and began another list. This one wasn't about money, it was about boundaries. No more emergency loans, no more credit card access, no more dropping everything when they called. No more accepting crumbs of acknowledgement while providing feast after feast of support. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of coral and gold, somewhere in this city. Rachel was probably rallying the family troops, painting me as the villain in her story. Daniel was likely telling Lisa how unreasonable I was being. Let them talk. Let them rage. Let them discover what life looked like without the National Bank of Mom, the free car rental service, the silent, invisible support system they'd taken for granted for so long. I poured myself a glass of wine. The good stuff. Harold's favorite Malbec that I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. The first day of my new life. The day I stopped confusing being a mother with being a martyr. The phone rang once more. This time, I didn't even look at it. I had plans to make. The next morning arrived with 17 missed calls and a string of text messages that escalated from confused to angry to threatening. I read them over my coffee, each one reinforcing my decision. Rachel. 11:43 p.m. Mom, please be reasonable. The Morrisons are asking questions. Daniel, 12:17. This is insane. You're destroying our family over a misunderstanding. Rachel. 6:22 a.m. I can't believe you actually reported fraud. Do you know what this could do to my career? I'm a lawyer. Daniel. 7:05 a.m. Lisa's crying. The stress isn't good for the baby. Hope you're happy. I deleted them all without responding and went about my morning routine. The locksmith was scheduled for 10. My lawyer could see me at 2. The financial advisor at 4. A full day of reclaiming my life. At 9:30, Elaine Parker knocked on my door. Unlike yesterday's casserole delivery, her face showed concern rather than neighborly cheer. Margaret, dear, I hope I'm not overstepping, but Rachel just called me. Of course she had. When direct assault failed, my daughter always tried flanking maneuvers. Come in. Elaine, would you like some coffee? We sat in the living room, 2 women who'd been neighbors for 15 years but had never really talked beyond pleasantries. Elaine studied me over her cup. She said you've had some kind of breakdown, that you're not yourself. On the contrary, I said, I'm more myself than I've been in years. She mentioned the engagement party incident. Incident, is that what she's calling it? Elaine set down her cup carefully. Margaret, I'm going to tell you something. Last month, I ran into your family at the farmer's market. Rachel, Daniel, and some others. I asked where you were, and Rachel said, Oh, we don't bring Mom to things like this. You know how she is. The words stung, even secondhand. How am I exactly? That's what I wondered. In 15 years, I've never seen you be anything but gracious. But the way she said it, so casually dismissive, it bothered me. And you're telling me this now because when she called this morning, spinning some story about your confusion and paranoia, I recognized the tone. My daughter did the same thing when I finally stopped funding her lifestyle. Suddenly, I was unstable and needed help. What did you do? Elaine smiled, a sharp expression that transformed her pleasant face. I held firm. Took 2 years, but she finally learned to respect boundaries. We have a real relationship now, not a banking arrangement. The locksmith arrived as Elaine was leaving. I watched him work. Each new lock a tangible symbol of change. Rachel called while he was installing the deadbolt on the back door. This time, I answered. Mom, we need to talk. In person. This has gone too far. I agree. It has gone too far. Years too far. I'm coming over. No, you're not. I'm having the locks changed. You're... What? Mom, this is insane. You can't lock out your own children. I'm not locking you out. Rachel, I'm locking my doors. If you want to visit, you can call ahead and ask. Like anyone else would. Like anyone else. I'm your daughter. Yes, and I'm your mother. Not your ATM. Not your silent investor. Not your convenient excuse for why you can't afford things while throwing lavish parties. Your mother. I'll contest the fraud claim. I'll tell them you gave me permission to use the card. Go ahead. I have 5 years of statements showing a pattern of financial abuse. I also have the thank you card from the Morrisons, expressing gratitude for my generosity regarding a party I knew nothing about. Would you like to explain that to a judge? Silence. Then, you'd really take me to court, your own daughter. You really threw a party with my money and didn't invite me, your own mother. That's different. You're right, it is. Because I'm done being different, I'm done being less than. I'm done accepting whatever scraps of acknowledgement you throw my way while you help yourself to my resources. Fine. You want to play it this way? Don't expect to see your grandchildren. When David and I have kids, you'll be nothing but a stranger to them. As opposed to now, when I'm nothing but a wallet. She hung up. The locksmith finished his work and handed me the new keys. 6 copies. I'd only need 2. 1 for me, 1 hidden outside for emergencies. The other 4 would stay in my drawer. If my children wanted access to my home, they'd have to earn it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then noticed it was signed. Mrs. Dawson, this is David Morrison. I just learned about the credit card situation with the engagement party. I'm appalled and deeply sorry. This is not how family should treat family. I'll be returning Rachel's ring until she can demonstrate she understands basic respect and decency. You deserve better. David. I read it twice, then sat down heavily on my newly secured sofa. Rachel's former fiancé, showed more consideration for my feelings than my own children had in years. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel, key in hand, fumbling at the lock. I watched him try 3 times before the realization dawned. He knocked, then pounded. "Mom, open up, your key isn't working." I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "The key works fine. It's the locks that have changed." "You changed the—" "Mom, what the hell?" "Language, Daniel. You can't just change the locks. This is our family home." "No," I said calmly. "This is my home. You have your own apartment. Or did you forget to pay rent again?" His face flushed. "That's not—" "Mom, Rachel's freaking out. David broke up with her. She's blaming you." David's decision is between him and Rachel, though I must say, he seems to have better judgment than I gave him credit for. This is destroying our family. No, Daniel, what's destroying our family is the complete lack of respect you and your sister have shown me. I've simply stopped enabling it. So that's it? You're just cutting us off? I'm establishing boundaries. If you want a relationship with me, it'll be on terms of mutual respect. If you want money, get a job. If you want to use my car, buy your own. If you want to be part of my life, try treating me like I matter. This isn't you. This isn't the mom who raised us. You're right. The mom who raised you would have given you the keys, the money, and an apology for inconveniencing you. She died yesterday morning when she realized her children threw a party celebrating family while deliberately excluding her from it. I closed the door on his shocked face and turned the deadbolt. The sound was oddly satisfying, a clear, definitive click that said more than any words could. My new life had officially begun. 3 days passed in relative peace. I met with my lawyer, who assured me the will changes were airtight. My financial advisor helped me restructure my accounts, removing all authorized users and establishing new safeguards. The house felt different, lighter, somehow, as if the changed locks had sealed out more than just unwanted visitors. On Thursday evening, the assault came. They arrived together at 6:45, Rachel and Daniel, looking like they'd coordinated their attack. I watched through the living room window as they climbed the porch steps. Rachel's professional suit and Daniel's unusually neat appearance told me they'd come to negotiate, or so they thought. I opened the door before they could knock. "Mother," Rachel began, using her courtroom voice, "we need to discuss this situation like adults." "I agree. Would you like to discuss it here on the porch, or shall we go to a neutral location?" "Mom, let us in. It's cold. It's October in Connecticut. Dress appropriately." Daniel pushed forward. "This is ridiculous. We're your children." "Yes, and you're also adults who've shown you can't respect my home or my boundaries, so we can talk here, or not at all." They exchanged glances. Rachel nodded slightly, the lawyer recognizing tactical disadvantage. "Fine," she said. "Let's start with the credit card situation. The bank called. They're investigating fraud charges." As they should. "Someone used my card without permission for nearly $10,000. You gave me that card for emergencies. Was a lavish engagement party an emergency?" "Mom," Daniel interjected, "you're destroying Rachel's life over this. David won't return her calls. His family thinks she's some kind of thief. She used someone else's credit card without their knowledge to fund a party that person wasn't invited to. What would you call it?" Rachel's composure cracked. "I call it a mistake. Okay? I should have invited you. Is that what you want to hear?" "No. What I want to hear is why you thought it was acceptable to exclude me in the first place." Silence stretched between us. Mrs. Henderson walked by with her terrier, pretending not to notice the family drama on my porch. Finally, Rachel spoke, her voice smaller. "You want the truth? Fine. You're embarrassing. You tell the same stories about Dad. You wear clothes from 10 years ago. You don't understand our jokes or references. David's family is sophisticated, and I wanted to make a good impression." Each word was a carefully placed knife. I felt them all but refused to bleed. I see, and you, Daniel, do you find me embarrassing too? He shifted uncomfortably. It's not like that, but yeah, sometimes. You're just not really part of our world, you know? Our friends, our lifestyle. It's different. Your lifestyle, I repeated. The one funded by my embarrassing money? That's not... Let me tell you what's embarrassing. I cut him off. Having to call your mother at 70 years old to bail you out of another financial crisis. Throwing parties you can't afford to impress people who don't care about you. Being so shallow that you'd trade your mother's presence for the approval of strangers. They're not strangers, Rachel protested. They're David's family, who thanked me for my generosity regarding a party I wasn't invited to. Yes, such sophisticated people. Look, Daniel said, we came here to fix this. What do you want, an apology? Fine, we're sorry. Now can we move past this? Move past it to what? The next time you need money? The next family event I'm too embarrassing to attend? What do you want from us? Rachel's voice rose, frustrated. Nothing, I said simply. I want absolutely nothing from you. They stared at me, unprepared for that answer. I spent 40 years wanting things from you, I continued, wanting respect, wanting inclusion, wanting to be seen as more than a resource to be tapped when needed. I'm done wanting. So that's it? Daniel asked. You're just giving up on us? No, I'm giving up on the fantasy that you'll ever see me as anything more than an embarrassment with a bank account. If you want a relationship with me going forward, it'll be because you genuinely want me in your lives, not because you need something. This is manipulation, Rachel said, finding her footing again. You're trying to control us with money. No, dear. Controlling you with money would be promising you things if you behaved. I'm not promising anything. I'm simply done giving to people who are ashamed of me. We're not ashamed. You just said I was embarrassing. Too embarrassing to invite to celebrate your engagement. Your words, Rachel, not mine. A car pulled up behind theirs. David Morrison got out, and I saw Rachel stiffen. Mrs. Dawson, he called out. I apologize for intruding. I saw the cars and thought, may I? Of course. David, though we're having a private family discussion, which I'm apparently part of, willing or not. He climbed the steps, carefully not looking at Rachel. I wanted to return this in person. He held out a check. $10,000. For the party expenses, he explained. My family and I are appalled that you were charged for an event you weren't invited to. This isn't how decent people behave. Rachel gasped. David, you can't. I can, and I have. Mrs. Dawson, I'm deeply sorry for any pain this situation has caused you. You deserved better from all of us. This is unnecessary, I said, though I took the check, but appreciated. It's entirely necessary. Basic decency is always necessary. He finally looked at Rachel. Something some people seem to have forgotten. David, please. No. Rachel, you told me your mother was difficult and antisocial. You said she preferred not to attend family events. You lied to me, to my family. And worst of all, you stole from the woman who raised you. I can't build a life with someone capable of that. He turned back to me. Mrs. Dawson, you have my family's respect and our apologies for unknowingly participating in this cruel exclusion. If you need anything, testimony for the bank, a statement for your lawyer, please don't hesitate to call. He left without looking back. Rachel stood frozen, tears finally breaking through her professional facade. Are you happy now? She whispered. You've ruined everything. No, I said quietly. You ruined it the moment you decided I wasn't good enough for your new life. I just stopped paying for the privilege of being excluded from it. Daniel grabbed Rachel's arm. Come on. This is pointless. As they walked to their cars, Rachel turned back one last time. I'll never forgive you for this. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I replied. I'm not asking for anything anymore. I watched them drive away, then went inside and locked my new deadbolt in the kitchen. David's check lay on the counter, validation in paper form that I wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting, wasn't the villain in this story. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in Harold's chair. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty anymore. For the first time in years, it was full of something I'd forgotten existed: self-respect, and that was worth more than all the family dinners I'd never be invited to. The knock came at 2:30 on Sunday afternoon, tentative and unfamiliar. Through the peephole, I saw David Morrison standing alone, holding what appeared to be a small potted orchid. I opened the door, genuinely surprised. "David, I wasn't expecting you." "Mrs. Dawson." "I apologize for dropping by unannounced. I wasn't sure you'd take my call." "Why wouldn't I?" He shifted slightly. "Uncomfortable. Well, given everything that's happened, may I come in? Just for a moment?" I studied him. This young man who'd shown more integrity in one evening than my children had in years. "Of course. Please." He followed me to the living room, still holding the orchid like a peace offering. "This is for you. My mother says orchids represent strength and grace under pressure." It seemed appropriate. "That's very thoughtful." I accepted the plant, admiring its delicate purple blooms. "Though I'm not sure why you're here." David sat when I gestured to the sofa, his posture formal but sincere. "I owe you an explanation, and probably another apology. You owe me nothing. You've already done more than necessary." "No, I haven't, not nearly." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that made him look younger than his 32 years. "Mrs. Dawson, I loved your daughter. Despite everything, I need you to know that, but these past few days have shown me someone I didn't recognize. People show different faces to different audiences. That's just it. I thought I knew all her faces. We've been together 3 years. I've seen her angry, stressed, jubilant, defeated, but this..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "When I confronted her about the party, about excluding you, she wasn't ashamed. She was annoyed at being caught." I set the orchid on the coffee table, saying nothing. Sometimes silence invited more truth than questions. "She said you'd always been peripheral to the family, that you preferred it that way. She made it sound like a kindness, not inviting you." His voice carried genuine bewilderment. "But when I pressed her, asked why she used your card without asking, she said, and I quote, 'She'll never notice. She never pays attention to anything important.'" The words stung, but not with surprise. Some part of me had always known how my children saw me. "I'm sorry," I said. "That must have been difficult to hear about someone you were planning to marry." "Difficult?" It was horrifying. My parents raised me to respect family, especially elders. My grandmother lived with us until she passed. She was included in everything, every dinner, every celebration, every decision that affected the family. The idea of excluding her because she might be embarrassing or peripheral. He shook his head. It made me realize Rachel and I have fundamentally different values. Values can be learned, I offered, though I wasn't sure why I was defending her. "Can they? At 34? David leaned forward. "Mrs. Dawson, I need to ask you something. And please be honest, has this happened before? The exclusion, the financial exploitation?" I considered lying, smoothing it over, protecting my children even now. But what had that protection earned me? "Yes," I said simply. Though nothing this blatant, usually it was smaller things. Forgotten invitations, borrowed money that was never mentioned again, plans made around me rather than with me. And you accepted it. I made excuses, told myself they were busy, stressed, building their lives, told myself this was what mothers did, gave without expecting returns. "My mother would have skinned me alive," David said with a rueful smile, metaphorically speaking, though knowing her, possibly literally. "Your mother sounds formidable." "She is. She's also the reason I'm here." He pulled out his phone, showed me a text. "She wanted to invite you to lunch next Sunday. If you're comfortable with that, she feels terrible about the whole situation." I stared at the message. A stranger wanted to include me in a family meal, while my own children saw me as a social liability. That's kind of her, but unnecessary. This isn't your family's fault. Maybe not, but we benefited from the cruelty. We attended a party funded by theft and never questioned why the mother of the bride wasn't there. He put his phone away. My parents are appalled at their own oversight. They remember you from the few times you met at firm events. My mother specifically mentioned how gracious you were, how proud you seemed of Rachel. I was proud, I admitted. Perhaps too proud to see clearly. Don't do that, David said suddenly. Don't blame yourself for trusting your children. The failure is theirs, not yours. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside, the October afternoon was crisp and golden, leaves dancing past the window. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Why are you really here? He considered the question. I suppose I needed to know you were okay. Rachel's been posting on social media, painting you as unstable, vindictive. People who don't know better might believe it. And you wanted to see for yourself? I wanted to make sure you knew that not everyone believes it, that some of us see exactly what happened here. He stood to leave. You're not the villain in this story, Mrs. Dawson. You're just a mother who finally demanded the respect she always deserved. I walked him to the door, feeling oddly lighter. David, for what it's worth, I think you dodged a bullet. I think so too, though it doesn't make it hurt less. No, I agreed. It never does. After he left, I picked up the orchid, admiring its delicate strength. My phone buzzed. Another text from Rachel, this one informing me that I was ruining her life and would die alone and unloved. I deleted it without reading it twice and carried the orchid to the kitchen windowsill where it would catch the morning sun. David's mother wanted to have lunch. Elaine Parker had become a real friend. My lawyer was confident about protecting my assets. I wasn't dying alone and unloved. I was living, finally, surrounded by people who saw my worth. The irony wasn't lost on me. In cutting off the family that took me for granted, I'd found a community that valued me. In refusing to be peripheral to my children's lives, I'd become central to my own. My phone buzzed again. This time, I turned it off entirely. The orchid would need water tomorrow. I'd need to research proper care. Maybe join the gardening club Elaine had mentioned. Small plans, but mine to make. For the first time in years. Tomorrow looked like a promise instead of another day to endure. 2 weeks later, Rachel's social media campaign reached its crescendo. Screenshots arrived via Elaine, who'd been monitoring the situation with the dedication of a neighborhood watch captain. Seeking recommendations for elder law attorneys, Rachel had posted, dealing with a parent showing signs of dementia and financial paranoia, making reckless decisions that affect the whole family, heartbroken but need to protect them from themselves. 200 comments of sympathy, 50 shares, a masterclass in public manipulation. I read it while sipping coffee in my garden. The November morning, crisp but pleasant, the roses needed pruning before winter, and I'd planned to tackle them today. Rachel's digital tantrum was just background noise now. My phone rang. Michael Patterson, my lawyer. Margaret, thought you should know. Rachel contacted my office trying to get information about your will changes. My paralegal shut her down, but she's persistent. Let her persist. It won't change anything. That's my girl. By the way, the fraud investigation concluded in your favor. The bank will be reversing all charges and issuing new cards. After we hung up, I returned to my roses. There was something therapeutic about cutting away the dead growth, revealing the healthy structure beneath, a metaphor Harold would have appreciated. Mrs. Dawson? I turned to find David's mother, Eleanor Morrison, at my garden gate. We'd had lunch twice now, discovering a mutual love of mystery novels and disdain for pretentious restaurants. Eleanor. Perfect timing. I was about to take a break. She entered, carrying a manila envelope. I won't stay long. I just wanted to deliver this personally. Inside the envelope were printouts, screenshots of text messages between Rachel and various family members from months before the engagement party. Mom's getting worse, one read. So needy and embarrassing. Definitely not inviting her to the engagement party. Another. Going to use her emergency card for the deposits. She'll never notice. And even if she does, what's she going to do? Disown us? LOL. And worse, David's family has money. Once we're married, we won't need her anymore. Just have to keep her happy until then." My hands didn't shake this time. The words confirmed what I'd already accepted. I'd been nothing but a resource to be managed and discarded. David found these when he was gathering his things from Rachel's apartment, Eleanor explained. He wanted you to have them in case you need evidence for legal proceedings. Or in case I start doubting myself? You're human, Margaret. We all have moments of weakness. I tucked the papers back into the envelope. No legal proceedings. I'm not interested in punishing them further. Living with themselves seems punishment enough. Eleanor smiled. Grace under pressure indeed, though I'd be tempted to post these online, given what Rachel's been saying about you. The truth has a way of surfacing eventually, and I have better things to do than engage in social media warfare with my daughter. We went inside for tea, and Eleanor caught me up on David. He'd thrown himself into work but was doing better. As she left, she paused at the door. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. Our family would be honored if you'd join us. That's kind, but no buts. You're family now, as far as we're concerned. Besides, my mother is dying to meet the woman who raised a daughter smart enough to fool David, but strong enough to stop fooling herself. After she left, I stood in my doorway, watching the afternoon light fade. My phone buzzed. Daniel this time. Probably following Rachel's script about my supposed dementia, I deleted without reading. The house felt different now. Not empty, but expectant, waiting to be filled with new memories, new traditions, new people who saw me as more than an ATM with inconvenient feelings. I thought about Harold, what he'd make of all this. He'd be proud, I decided. Proud that I'd finally kept my promise to take care of myself. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, a proper meal for one, not leftovers or frozen dinners, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Rachel and Daniel again. But this time, they hadn't come to negotiate. They were taping something to my door. I waited until they left, then retrieved the paper. A formal letter from a law firm, not a good one. I noted with professional interest, threatening legal action for elder abuse through financial manipulation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I actually laughed. My children were trying to sue me for refusing to be their doormat anymore. I photographed the letter and texted it to Michael, then added it to my filing system under comedy. Let them waste money they didn't have on lawyers who'd laugh them out of court. The next morning dawned bright and cold. I dressed carefully, not in my 10-year-old clothes, but in a new sweater Elaine had helped me pick out. I had plans today. Coffee with the garden club, lunch with Eleanor, an afternoon appointment to look at volunteer opportunities at the library. My phone rang as I was leaving. An unknown number, but I recognized Daniel's girlfriend's voice. "Mrs. Dawson, Lisa, I wanted you to know I think what they're doing is wrong. The lawsuit, the social media stuff, all of it. Daniel won't listen to me, but I wanted you to know not everyone believes their version. Thank you. Lisa, that means more than you know. I grew up without grandparents," she continued. "I won't let my child grow up without knowing you because of Daniel's greed and pride, whatever happens between you and them. I'll make sure you know your grandchild." After we hung up, I sat in my car for a moment, overwhelmed, and cutting off the toxic branches. I'd allowed room for new growth, Lisa's call, David's integrity, Eleanor's friendship, Elaine's support. These were the unexpected blooms in my November garden. I drove past the Grand Meridian on my way to coffee. Through the ballroom windows, I could see staff setting up for another event, another family celebrating something. This time, I hoped, with all the family members who mattered actually invited. My phone buzzed one last time. Rachel again, this time a voice message I'd probably delete unheard. But something made me listen. "Mom, you win, okay? You've destroyed everything. David's gone. His family hates me. Everyone's talking about it. I've had to take leave from work because this is affecting my reputation. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" I pulled into the garden club meeting and turned off my phone. Was I happy? No. A mother never celebrates her children's pain, even when they've caused their own downfall. But was I at peace? Finally. Yes. Inside. 8 women greeted me warmly, making space at their table, pouring coffee, asking about my roses. None of them knew about family drama or lawsuits or social media campaigns. They just knew Margaret, the woman who'd recently joined their club and had interesting perspectives on composting. As I settled into my chair, surrounded by acceptance and warmth from virtual strangers, I realized the truth. I hadn't lost my family. I'd simply discovered they'd never really been mine to lose. But in setting down that burden, I'd found my hands free to hold something better, a life lived on my own terms, surrounded by people who valued me not for what I could give, but for who I was. The meeting began, and I turned my attention to the discussion of winter mulching techniques. Somewhere across town, my children were probably crafting new strategies to force me back into my old role. Let them plan. Let them plot. Let them exhaust themselves, beating against the walls I'd finally learned to build. I was done being peripheral to my own life. This was my center now, and I intended to bloom where I'd finally planted myself, in the rich soil of self-respect, under the warming sun of genuine friendship, in a garden I'd tend with my own hands. The roses would survive the winter. So would I. And come spring, we'd both bloom brighter for having weathered the storm. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your own thoughts and experiences. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us we're not alone in our struggles.